All right, now that you've found all the chord tones, it should look something like this. So you should have all those notes circled. So at this point, you can go through and figure out where all the rhythmic displacements are. And that's going to help you with your figured bass and your melodic figures. Okay, so we're going to look at beat 1, beat 2, and beat 3. Those are our strongest beats. Of course, our strongest beat is beat 1 and then 1. The next strongest is beat 3. Then the next strongest are beat 1, 2, and 3, right? And then we have all of our weak beats in between that. So let's begin. So beat 1 is here, strong beat, we have a chord tone. Beat 2, that is not a strong beat. Okay, so that means we have a rhythmic displacement on beat 2. And then you can see, if we look at this melodic figure, we've got a passing. So through passing, a rhythmic displacement has occurred. Let's keep going. Okay, we have another chord tone on a weak beat. That means that again, on the strong beat, we have another rhythmic displacement. Okay, this measure we have all strong beats, great. This measure we have lots of chord tones leaping and then even a neighbor note with chord tones, but here we have another rhythmic displacement, again coming out through passing. Strong beats, lots of strong beats. Again, weak beats, so you can put that in like this measure. And again, all of our important beats are strong beats, okay? So go through and figure all of that out. Well, let me just put the remaining rhythmic displacements in here. So we have a rhythmic displacement here and a rhythmic displacement here. Okay, so now we've accounted for all of our strong beats that don't have a chord tone on them. Now we can go through and figure out our figured bass. And this is where it's going to take a long time to do all of this because we have to look very carefully at the bass. So that's a root position triad, D, F sharp, and A. Look at that. The first chord tone we come to, first it's on the weak beat, so we're going to have to put the figured bass on the strong beat because that's where it's supposed to be. But the other thing is it's one of our new ones. It's our arpeggiated 6/4 because it's our tonic triad in second inversion. So that ends up being right about there. Try to get it right under there. It's not letting me move it. Okay. And so that's where that A is supposed to be. And now this F sharp is also supposed to be here. So I will put that here. Okay, you can go through again. We have an E, G, B, D. This is a 2 chord of our primary tonic. Go through 6, 5, 4, 3, 6, 5. Here's an interesting one. This we have an E. Okay, so it's in second inversion. So this would be a 4-3, going to a 4-2, going to a 7, going to a 4-3, and then 4-2, sorry. And then on this rhythmic displacement, that has been moved over in passing. So here we would put again 4-3 under the rhythmic displacement because that chord tone is supposed to be there. Okay. Go through and figure that all out. Again, this measure will look a lot like this one, except for now we're in A. Pause the video and go through and figure that out. Okay, so now that you've got all your figured bass done, it should look something like this. So notice all of these arpeggiated 6/4s that happen everywhere. Now it's time to figure out the melodic figures. Now that we know where the strong beats are, we figured out the rhythmic displacements in the bass. Now we label the melodic figures in the outer voices. The soprano is super easy because in the soprano, we just have a repeated figure. So we don't really have a 4-note repeated figure in the same way. If you can imagine that this is just, if you want to look at this and you can say, well, there isn't really any melodic figures here. If this was trochaic, it would be F sharp, E. You can just call this figure repetition. And every single one of those is repetition. all the way along. Okay, so I won't do that for you. The trickier one comes in with our bass. So at this point, if you're using a pencil, you could actually go and start erasing all your indications because they'll get in the way a little bit, get in the way a little bit of your naming of your melodic figures. So we're gonna look for 5-note, 4-note, 3-note melodic figures. You could do this whole thing with 3-note melodic figures and I would mark it correct. But again, you can't have a melodic figure from here to a rhythmic displacement because a rhythmic displacement is not a chord tone. So your first one, beat 1 to beat 2, that doesn't work, but beat 1 to the second of 2 does. So this would have been a D going to an A that's been filled in with passing through rhythmic displacement. So we can do this like that. Oops, I got in front of my rhythmic displacement. And then we call that passing. Now, this next one is a little bit tricky because of this rhythmic displacement here. This note should be, the A should be on beat 2, the F sharp should be on beat 3, right? So there's a few different ways you could notate this. I'm just gonna go from chord tone to chord tone. And if we go from, say, beat 2 here, or the A, the chord tone, all the way to the next downbeat, we actually have a 4-note passing, a 4-note skip step. So you could indicate that as a skip step. You could also indicate this just as passing. So I am fine with either. There's often different ways to interpret that, okay? So that would be a skip step, 4-note skip step. I'm just gonna name this passing for now just to keep it simple so we can see, but both of those answers are correct and there's often a number of correct answers in these. Okay, here we have chord tones all in the strong beats. If we first look to a 5-note figure, that isn't a figure that we know. We don't have a 4-note figure that looks like this, but we do in fact have a 3-note figure passing and another 3-note figure passing. But if we started from here, and there is an emphasis on beat 2, which happens, remember, in the minuets. If we go from beat 2 to the next beat 1, we have a 5-note passing. So this would be a nice, easy time to use that our knowledge of 5 notes and just call this a 5-note passing. And you should be noticing that this is a common thing that happens throughout this. So you see that as well here. There's one as well here. So it's a common figure that you're going to see in there. Okay. Go through and find all of these. I'm going to talk this through and then I'll show you my interpretation of all of these. Notice here we have a 4-note arpeggio. It really goes from here to here, but the whole first 2 measures have a 4-note arpeggio, and then you could do a 3-note passing. This measure will look exactly like this measure, and you have a few options the way you want to do that here. And take a look at this. If you considered this, which is all in over the 2 chord, if you considered all of that to be one figure, it's one of our special 4-note figures. So take a look for that. And then of course we have a nice expanded broken chord at the end. Okay, so basically looking from strong beat to strong beat, you can figure this out. Here's an interesting place because we do have a leap to a B. So this might indicate that there's a chord change here. But at the same time, it's just really an upper neighbor and we would consider this an incomplete passing. So really, it's kind of like it's filled in. There just isn't enough notes in order to keep this even. So really, this is simply a non-chord tone that's an upper neighbor to the chord tone, which is an A on the strong beat. Okay? Go through, pause the video, figure all this out, and here is the key. I will end the video with this so you can pause and look at the video this way, but I will also upload this to Learn, so if you want to see all of your mistakes, you can spend more time doing that. Okay, and hopefully this helps you with your homework.